let's have some fun making some sample-based music. We're going to learn how to use Kontakt. We're going to learn how to edit a little bit. And let's be creative. I'm going to not recreate a song, but I am using some samples from Kendrick Lamar's Sing For Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, namely the drum beat that comes from Bill Withers' track, Use Me, and some other sections that aren't actually used in Kendrick's track, but the song is Maybe Tomorrow by the late, great jazz guitarist Grant Green. Let's get right to it. So the drum sample shows up somewhere around here where all the music and the singing stops and we're left with just drums for 2 beats, half a measure. So you got to be paying attention.
Keep on using me.
1, 2, out. All right, so that's it. So I'm in slip mode. I have my tab to transients button engaged. Remember that tab to transients allows you to hit the tab key on your QWERTY keyboard and advance to the next amplitude spike, aka a transient, these volume hits. And when they're drums, they're very, very easy to see.
Keep on using me.
All right, so this is our first kick drum. I'm going to place my cursor just in front of it, hit tab to transients, hit Command E, 1, 2. My next kick drum, which would be beat 3, is right there. So I'm going to cut everything just ahead of that, and this should be a clean sample. Or I should say a clean loop. So even though it's 2 measures long, if it play it over and over again, we got a drum beat. Now, already, it's not a perfect 2-beat loop, but that's also in the spirit. It's the style, it's the vibe, especially of old school hip hop. Things aren't perfect. We're just, we're making the best of what we got. So to get this out of Pro Tools and into Kontakt ultimately, because that's what we want to do, is we need to export this. I'm not going to bounce mix because Pro Tools does tend to put, some milliseconds ahead in your bounce files. So I'm going to come over to clips, the drop down here in the clip list, and I'm going to go export clips as files. And I'm going to choose a folder where I want it to go. So I have a project that I've named it sampling. I want to actually make a new folder for myself just to house all of my samples. So I'm going to call it samples. It's inside of my project folder. I'll click on that and hit open. So it ends up at the end of my hierarchy. I'm going to hit export, and that's it. We're done. Now, I have a stereo instrument track. My samples are stereo. I want to keep my samples as stereo, whether they're coming out of the sampler. A word on what we could do. I see a lot of people, beginners, intermediates, and even advanced, just use the sample as is. And I really don't want to do that, especially, in the spirit. I really think you're more creative when you're hitting a keyboard and triggering samples in ways that you didn't think that they would come out. This is going to be a very basic one because I just want to use it as a loop, but I'm still going to put it into Kontakt. So I've inserted my Kontakt instrument, and I open it up, and I am looking at all of the libraries, but we're not going to use it, to trigger piano sounds or anything like that. We want to trigger these wave files that we're using, that we've created. So we're going to click on the Files tab so we can see kind of the hierarchy of our desktop here. And we're going to go find the sampling project that I created in the samples folder, which the only thing I have is this Bill Withers track. Or Jermaine, chill, bro. I'm going to keep going here. Maybe I'll sample him in the next one. So I'm going to click and drag Bill Withers into this window. And now I have the drum track that I can trigger. If I click on this wrench, I can see some additional elements of this. Namely, what I want to look at right now is the mapping editor. So I'm going to click on the mapping editor, and it shows me that this sample, this wave file that I created, actually spans, 8 octaves or what. The root of it is on C3. So if I click on C3 or trigger C3 on my keyboard, I'm hearing the exact sample as it was recorded. That is at pitch, it is at tempo. If I click, A2, it is pitched lower and it is playing back slower. So if you wanted to maybe, go for a slower vibe, I'm actually going to speed it up slightly and I'm going to trigger C# 3. Okay, so you do have the ability to adjust these, and we'll get into that when we're using the Grant Green sample. But for now, that is fine. So I'm kind of done with that for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and open up my MIDI editor. And for this, I'm actually just going to draw in, what am I even doing here? My two beat. Oh, it's already drawn in. Interesting. I'm going to draw that in on C#. All right. So I have my 2 beats. I haven't adjusted my tempo yet, so let's figure out what's going on with this. I need to clean my clip up. And here we go. Okay, so the 2 beats isn't even triggering. 1, 2, because my tempo is 120, and this is not playing back at 120 BPM. So I'm just going to choose this. My conductor is off, so I can just make some changes here. And I'm going to jump to 88 and see where that leaves me. 1, 2. It's still fumbling on itself this is too fast still. Let's go to 83. 1, 2. That's pretty close. I still think it might be cutting off a little bit. So I'm going to go to 82. Maine. Okay, that sounds pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, if I duplicate it, we're good. All right, I was having some issues with this earlier today. It didn't look good. Okay, so I found my, the sample that I wanted. I cut it cleanly. I checked it, make sure that it looped well. I exported it, export clips as files. I brought it into Kontakt from the my samples folder, and I triggered 2 beats, and it loops. We're going to end the drum segment there.